8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, patriots across this great republic under God, welcome to Hashtag Town Hall, the flagship podcast of Red America First organization. I'm your host tonight, Megeso Dennis, the corruption pillar for Red America First. Red America First is an organization, its nonprofit movement dedicated to uniting Christian patriots to reclaim America's founding principles of faith, freedom, and constitutional governance. Hashtag Town Hall is the nation's most engaging platform where we the people, run the show. Joining us tonight on Hashtag Town Hall is Janice Trey. I pronounce that right? Interim CEO of the Epoch Times and a true warrior for truth and freedom. A survivor of Mao's Chinese labor camps during the Cultural Revolution. Janice rose from unimaginable hardship to become a highly accomplished CPA and Fortune 500 executive with decades of leadership across the globe. Astor's Point will be resuming their show in June. We will keep you updated with the date and time, and you can always check Facebook for updates on our event page. We need your warrior support to keep this mission charging forward. Our team thrives on the generosity of patriots like you. Even $20 fuels our national crusade against the deep state. Head to Gives and Go, GIVESENDGO.com/Red America First/donate. For those joining the live stream, we're looking to grow our live panel. Panel members engage directly with guests like Janice Trey and participate in the famous state-to-state intel round. Sign up at RedAmericaFirst.com, add your state, and let us know you want to be a panel member. Every week, our podcast starts with prayer, the Pledge of Allegiance, and normally the national anthem. Everyone, let's bow our heads as Rosemary, editor-in-chief of our famous magazine, leads us into prayer tonight. Thank you, Rosemary.
You're welcome. O God, through your only begotten Son, have conquered death and unlocked for us the path to eternity. Grant, we pray, that we who keep the solemnity of the Lord's resurrection may, through the renewal brought by your Spirit, rise up in the light of life. Through our Lord Jesus Christ, your Son, who lives and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever. And we ask you, Lord, to please accept our thanks for all of the blessings, all of the good things that you have bestowed upon us. And please continue to bestow your blessings and good things upon us throughout our future lives, and touch everyone on our podcast tonight in a special way, so that we may also have a very successful episode. We thank you and praise you in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Rosemary. Rob from the Buckeye State of Ohio, our founding members, will do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Rob. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, we had a brief internet interruption there. Normally we do the national anthem, but Leslie Mahan is not with us tonight, I understand. So we'll forego that. But thank you. What a great introduction tonight to kick off our interview with Janice. Welcome to Hashtag Town Hall. Janice, before we get started, may I call you Janice?
Yes, please. Thank you
Okay.
for having me
Okay.
on your show.
Now, Janice, before we get started, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, your hobbies, or what motivates you every day.
Yeah. So I am always grateful for the United States of America. This is the country of freedoms. I've been here for 30 some years and I enjoy the freedoms. I grew up in the forced labor camps and really treasure the freedom here. My hobbies include travel and also spending time with family. Family is a very important part of my life and I treasure that. And I also like to share what I know, trying to give a voice to the voiceless that pretty much take up most of my time besides work.
That's great. Thank you for coming on Town Hall tonight. So we're going to ask you a series of questions. I will. Then we're going to turn it over to our panel who can engage with you directly. So, Janice, you survived the horrors of Mao's Cultural Revolution as a child in a Chinese labor camp. Can you share with our audience what daily life was really like under that regime and how those experiences fuel your commitment to exposing the Chinese Communist Party's global threats today?
So I was in the labor camp because my parents were engineers during the Cultural Revolution. So we were sent to very remote areas. Every day as a first grade, second grade, third grade, I grew the sugar cane on the top of the hill for the school, carry fertilizers, almost felt like heavier than myself to the top of the hill. And during harvest seasons, every day after school, I must walk aisles by aisles on the crop field, pick up crops, drop on the field. They use hand harvest, so without the advanced machine tools. So some crops were dropped on the field. If I could not fill a full plastic bag of crops, I would not be able to return to school the next day. And we live in a very primitive situations. There was only one television set for the entire labor camp. And then the 2 times that we got to watch television was attending the funeral of Mao Zedong and Zhou Enlai. Everybody stood in front of televisions wearing something black. And that was my association of televisions. And it was not until I went to Hong Kong to visit my grandfather, and a little bit sorry, my grandfather was a successful banker. He owned a bank. But when communism came to China, they robbed his bank, took away his art collections, and so he fled to Hong Kong and restarted as a security guard, living in a warehouse 24/7. Eventually, he reestablished his business. And it was only when I went to Hong Kong, I saw there were news on televisions. There was cartoon on televisions, and that was like non-existent, during my days in the forced labor camp. I would say what really planted the seeds for me to seek the truth was when I was in Hong Kong, I compared the textbooks of the same historical period, textbook from Taiwan, textbook from mainland China, and textbook from Hong Kong. For the same historic periods, I saw totally different descriptions. So that planted the seeds of trying to seek the truth was really which version was the correct ones. And so I'm glad to be the board chair of the Epoch Times, publications, with in 21 languages and 35 countries that we're providing truth to our readers every day.
As a leader at the Epoch Times, you've been at the forefront of reporting the truth about the CECP influence, human rights abuses, and propaganda. What do you see as the most dangerous ways China is infiltrating American institutions? media, and technology right now, and what should patriots be watching for?
So there's a transnational repression happening on American soil. The tactics by the Chinese Communist Party for the past 4 decades has been Americas against America. The book Americas Against America was authored by Huang Huning, the number 4 highest ranking member in China, and he's one of the 7 Politburo. The Americas Against America strategy has been implemented on American soil. So they use lawfare, and they manipulate the media, and then they also infiltrate into our education system. So let me break it down on each of those. So let's start with the media side. Washington Post, New York Times, and USA Today, and even the Our Register, all of them have ran inserts from the China Daily, which is the Chinese Communist Party's mouthpiece. If you're not paying close attention to the header that described it as advertisement, because it's not read like advertisement, you thought that it was written by New York Times or Washington Post, but they were not. And so that was how the propaganda and the message that the Chinese Communist Party want to embed it into our media. So that's one. The second one is the lawfare, and this is very rigorous, like with frivolous lawsuits for anyone and any U.S. organizations who may speak up against the Chinese Communist Party. Let me give you an example of Shenyun Performing Arts, which is the world's renowned premier classical Chinese dance with a live orchestra and a patented animated backdrops. Shenyun has reached 15 million audience, and each year adding another millions. And you see it in Lincoln Centers, in Kennedy Centers, and around the world. It's one of the fastest growing America's company based in New York. And so the Chinese Communist Party trying to stop US audience, the ticket purchasers, to coming to see Shenyun show. For example, at Kennedy Center, they had the bomb threats. If someone really want to bomb something, they're not going to give you alerts. When they have the bomb threat, it's really trying to dissuade you from attending. And it was in a bitter cold date in DC, and so in the middle of the rehearsals, the dancers and the musicians were all forced to evacuate to the outside in the bitter cold without the winter clothes. And, it was all over the news. And so some of the ticket buyers, they thought, oh, maybe I don't come tonight, even though I have the tickets. That's the tactics has been applied. And the Chinese Communist Party went further steps to bribe the Internal Revenue Services, IRS agents, in attempts to remove the nonprofit status of Shenyun Performing Arts. I mean, luckily, in that particular case, the FBI agent was involved. So the people who bribed the IRS agent were brought to justice. So it is really every facet of society, they are using Americas against Americas. In the education fronts, let me give you an example of the Confucius Institutes, which have been embedded in high school, in colleges, and many people went to Confucius Institutes, with the objective of learning Chinese. However, Confucius Institute would not hire someone like me who's capable of teaching Chinese. My first language is Chinese, because they only want to export teachers directly from mainland China. I read the textbooks in Confucius Institutes. Those were full of propagandas of the Chinese Communist Party messages. And even the songs they taught at Confucius Institute are full of Communist Party messages. So people may be naive about learning Chinese, but what they learn was not just Chinese, but really the Chinese Communist Party propaganda. Let me give you one more example. In October 2022, Xi Jinping specifically ordered the exports of the persecution of Falun Gong on American soil, and using media, legacy media like the New York Times, using lawfare, and also using influencers in the internet to target Falun Gong. And Falun Gong is a meditation Tai Chi type of exercise practiced by 100 million people in China and also in 115 countries around the world. In fact, in the United States, there have been multiple resolutions supporting Falun Gong in the US Congress, and then they're also in the annual reports by the State Departments has been calling out asking Chinese Communist Party to stop the brutal persecutions. So it's a group of people in China that they don't drink, they don't smoke, but they do meditation, Tai Chi type of exercise, meditation exercise every day. They're known for the healthiest group in China. In fact, there have been 4 major health surveys on Falun Gong practitioners, and each of those have a health improvements between 96% to 98%. So what the Chinese Communist Party see that as an opportunity to target this group of people for their organs, for transplant on demand. People don't want a smoker's lung. In China, smoking is widespread, in particular among men, and no one wants an alcoholic person's liver or kidney. And so the Falun Gong practitioners who don't drink, they don't smoke, and they do exercise, meditation, Tai Chi type of exercise every day, they are known as the healthiest group. And so they kill people on demand. And so this is really what's happening. And as Americans, we need to be alert.
Yes. Yeah, that's definitely an attack on our health, safety, and welfare. Now, you've spoken powerfully about the parallels between the censorship and ideological control you witnessed in China and growing big tech and the government overreach here in America. How can we protect free speech, truthful journalism in this environment while staying rooted in our founding principles of faith and liberty?
It's very sad to see many media outlets have abandoned traditional journalism. Many are funded by wealthy billionaires or major shareholders with a particular control, trying to push forward certain agendas that may or may not be of America's interests. Epoch Times was founded in 2000, so we are celebrating our 26 years very soon, over 25 years. And we've been focusing on truth, tradition, and hope. And despite all the suppressions, let me give you some example of the suppressions. In 2019, Epoch Times has gained 60 million followers on Facebook, and we're adding 17,000 new subscribers per month. And Facebook all overnight in August 2019 stopped taking our advertisements. We're an American company. We advertise with Facebook's. How could they discriminate us from letting us running advertisements? They were trying to curtail the growth. We were growing very, very fast. Let me give you another example. Google, on the inauguration date of Biden's, overnight, our 3 flagship programs, American Thought Leaders, Crossroads, and Facts Matters, all 3 programs were overnight deplatformed. At the time, those 3 programs have close to 2 million followers. And so they don't want us to grow. They don't want our information to reach others. They took a further step later on to remove Epoch Times from Google News and Google Discovery. What it means is if you are not Epoch Times subscribers, even though Epoch Times publish about 250 articles per day, 5,000 articles per month, you don't find Epoch Times articles when you do a Google search, because they purposely suppress us. So that's why it's really important for the audience to subscribe to the Epoch Times. Epoch Times is non-profits, 501c3, and our revenue source is primarily the subscription revenues and some donations. So we do not answer to any billionaires or any major shareholders. That our really responsible and accountability is to the readers, and it's the subscriptions, it's the subscribers who funded us. And so we are not subject to those influence. And it is really important to provide facts to people. Let me give you examples. We reported the COVID-19 in January 2020, a few months before the rest of the world. We renew about it in March. So our subscribers, when they read about Epoch Times, the description of pandemic in China, some of subscribers who were traveling to China at the time quickly changed their return flights back to US, back to Europe and Australia, and they avoided the lockdown. Whereas their relatives and colleagues on the same schedule return flights but did not change the flights, they never return home. They die of COVID in China. And so timely information could save lives. And that's why journalism of reporting facts and courageous reportings, despite the pressures and despite the censorships, it's really important to provide facts to the readers and help readers make informed decisions. And that's our goal.
Well, it sounds like the Epoch Times is giving a voice to the voiceless against authoritarianism at home and abroad. So the American first journalism should look to emulate that, I would think. So looking at the current political landscape under President Trump and the broader fight against socialism and globalism, what practical wisdom or warnings would you offer to everyday patriots and Christian conservatives who want to safeguard our families, our faith, and our freedoms for the next generation?
Communism is not only atheist. Communism is meant to replace all faith with communism and communism only, at least for the Chinese Communist Party. We are created by the creators. And so how could we be stopped from the connection with the divinity? And let me give you some examples. For 50 years before the announcement of Olympics to be held in Beijing, not a single church permit was allowed in Beijing, despite all the business, all the requests, because they don't want churches there. Even when Secretary Condoleezza Rice went to China, make a part of her trips to visit church, but none of the people in the church were churchgoers. They were actors and actresses, because they would not want Secretary Rice to be in touch with the churchgoers. And in China, a lot of underground churches. In fact, when Pope John Paul II, when he named bishops, there was one undisclosed name because that bishop was in China. Had the name been released, that bishop will be subject to death threats. And even Bishop Zen in Hong Kong, he spoke up, and he's pretty much more or less like under house arrest, and his freedom was very much restricted, and they persecuted him and so on and so forth. And so for all of us who enjoy the freedom, who believe in our creators, and who want others to have a chance to reconnect with the divinity, it's really important to end communism once and for all. Imagine when communism is ended one day in Cuba, it will bring back its old glory. It used to be known as like almost like the Paris in the West. I mean, with all the people were having really great times, and you know, economic growth and so on and so forth. And I think there is hope to bring that once we eliminate communism. And to eliminate communism in China, Epoch Times published 9 commentaries of the communist parties, and that has inspired 480 18,900,000 people withdrew from the Chinese Communist Party, the Chinese Communist Youth League, and the Chinese Communist Young Pioneers, the three tiers in the Communist parties. And so this marked the peaceful transitions to non-communistic states in China. In fact, for 5,000 years, there were no communisms. For those who really want to get a peek into what's China before communism, like go see Shen Yun Performing Arts, SHENYUN. It shows, you know, the different dynasty, the different ethnicity groups, and it's true China before communism. Even when you travel to China today, you see the high-rise buildings, skyscrapers, and even when you visit the forbidden cities, the summer palace, you see architectures. You do not know how people live in the early days and what are the values. So it's really important for all of us to treasure our freedom and to speak up. And you can connect to people in China. You could have Bible study with people in China. How? You can download SafeMeet, SAFEMEET. So SafeMeet is a single applications that allow you to do calling, texting, file sharing, and video conferencing all in one single app. You can go to Google Play Store or Apple App Store and download. For those use computer, go to safemeet.us and you can download whether it's Windows version or Mac versions. It's extremely simple, but it provides end-to-end encryptions. And the way the encryption works is like the decryption code is only stored on your own computer or your own phone, meaning no third parties can decrypt it. You know, all the hackers, they will hack it remotely, but they cannot get to your physical phone or physical computer, and that means they won't be able to decode it. And so it's a true safe tool, and it's different than the other tools that all the competing softwares using phone number. Phone number is convenience to use. However, phone number expose your locations. All the competitors use phone number because they want your location so that they can put forth advertisements like WhatsApp. And even for signals, you probably heard about the presidents of the parliaments in Germany. Her signal accounts was hacked. And so imagine, and he's like the number 2 person, she is the number 2 person in Germany. And even with all the government security, because of the signal accounts, and it was hacked. And so this is very risky. And let me give you an example. When before Tucker Carlson went to Russia to interview Putin, Tucker Carlson was approached by National Security Agency, NSA, and asked why would he want to go to Russia. And he was shocked. I said, how do you know? I have not even told my wife about going to Russia. So, well, we read your signal messages. And when Tucker Carlson was in Russia, he was in touch with Snowden through Signal, but those messages were leaked. So that means there's some sort of backdoor someone can access to it. So where's the SafeMeet, because of the design, is true frame-to-frame, end-to-end encryptions. And SafeMeet does not store your data, does not monetize your data, and it is a tool that allowed you to connect with people around the world, you know, to have Bible study together, including people in China. And you can share that with your friends and families or anyone that you know in China or around the world. SafeMeet support 40 languages. And so based on whatever language in their phone setups, it will automatically provide the version. So think of Christians in Nigeria as being persecuted, and as long as there's internet, people can use safe means. Even though you can make phone calls, we can do voice calls on safe meet apps, it actually does not use any of the cell phone companies. And that provide another level of securities because cell phone companies, their routers and modems and all those things could be easily hacked, and phone is not that safe. So I strongly encourage audience to download Safe Meets and share with your friends and family. It's free. It's really like gift to humanity, to give to help people in close societies and opportunity to be connected. It's really like lighting a candle in the dark rooms. It brings them hopes and American values, because U.S. do not have boots on the ground in China. It's not possible under the Communist China. So engaging with the billion-plus Chinese citizens, how you can use safe means, in a secure way. American values. I mean, we can do Pledge of Allegiance. We can share the American values with people around the world. Back to your questions, if we can eliminate communism once and for all, and then it will free North Korea. When we free North Korea, we remove the nuclear threat. If we can free China, and that will help the U.S.-China relationship, and also high percentage of the pharmaceuticals were manufactured in China. A lot of gadgets and parts and things that we use our daily lives, some parts of it are manufactured in China, like some components. And so it's really dangerous when you deal with a Communist Party that is only concerned about its own survival, not as citizens, let alone Americans. In China, there's no protections. So the once and for all solution is to help end communism. I will encourage everyone to also look at the book called The Spectre of Communism Ruling the World. The Spectre of Communism Ruling the World, published by the Epoch Times in 2018. This book systematically described how communism infiltrated in every facet of societies using different names. You may have seen some of the protests around the country just trying to create chaos. Some of those were funded by people associated or funded by people who benefit from the Chinese Communist parties, because Communist Party's goal is to eliminate the free worlds, to control the free worlds. And so using chaos is the tactics. So don't think those Americans, they are being supplied with the money and with the informations and with the tools. And so we have to be alert.
All right. Thank you very much for that. That was wonderful. So we're going to turn it over to our panel. So panel members, if you have any questions, raise your hand and be respectful of our guest. And one question that I wanted to ask, if we turn it over to our panel, is when is the last time you been to your place of birth in China?
Sometime between 2000 or 2002 or so, when my grandmom was very sick, I was able to saw her for the very first time. She saved my life in my childhood. But since I've been outspoken about threats from the Chinese Communist Party, so I have been under multiple death threats, and so that's not a wise decisions, but it's more important to give a voice to the voiceless. And yeah, I wish I could travel there, but not safe.
Well, it's great that you got to see your grandmother and meet her for the first time. Our first question is going to come from Rob in Ohio. Go ahead, Rob.
Hi, Janice. I got so many questions, but we're only allowed one at a time. 2 years ago, we had a missionary come into our church and she was a English teacher that was able to go over to China. And one of the things that happens, we were told not to tell anyone that she was going to be there or what she was going to talk about. And now hearing your story, it also makes sense that we were told that there might be Chinese agents in America that would interfere with her speech and
Yes.
report it back and maybe get her barred from the country. In your line of work being so highly visible with Epoch Times, do you have any, have you ever been bothered by any of the Chinese agents trying to either destroy your reputation here or silence you?
Yeah, there have been multiple attempts. I was physically assaulted outside the Epoch Times office after work on the way to the subway stations. I mean, it was a very short walk, maybe like 80, I would say 100 meters or so. And I mean, luckily, there were 3 police nearby. I was able to report it to the police. And the police didn't make an attempt to go after the one who attacked me, but really stopped very quickly. And there have been other situations that they attempted to put something on the tire such that when I was on the highway, the tire pressure dropped to 7. So it was like really risky, and it was not a small nail. It was something that was really on purpose to create the situations that could be life-threatening and could also impact other innocent people if the car all of a sudden stop in the middle of highways, could impact others. So, but that have not stopped me. I think even reinforce that we need to give a voice to the voiceless, and evils is most worried about being exposed. And so we have to expose more. And so I appreciate the opportunity to share with this, and then you can share with others. And but of course, I will take more precautions since those incidents. But as I said earlier, in a dark room, when you light a candle, it brings hopes. And we need to bring hopes to people around the world in closed societies. And they need to know that we're all created by the creators, and there is hopes, and they should not give up. Like, help is on the way, and I think all of us can participate it. And if you think of the world, is not because there are too many perpetrators, but because too many people have been silenced. Because too many people were silenced, that's why the bad ones were able to get a way of doing things for long. But if everybody speaks up, I don't think 6 million Jews will be perished. And I don't think that many Falun Gong practitioners would have been killed. And so it takes is to speak up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Candle, no matter how small the candle, it will drive back the deepest darkness. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob.
Rob, we'll come back to you later for another question. Thank you for that. Next question comes from Brett. Go ahead.
Hi, Janice. Thank you so much. There's a question, but I want to start gushing for a moment. I'm a big fan of Epoch Times. I've been following since probably 2009 or so. I used to live in Guam, and I was very aware of the threat from the CCP and helping people in the mainland US understand the threat. It sounded like paranoia or xenophobia. And I've used your news source as a reference to help people understand. And even then, it's so unbelievable, the surreptitious techniques that have been used on so many fronts. Now I'm preaching to the choir, but I want to thank you for your bravery, for all your staff, for what you've been doing and continuing on with such a mortal threat against everyone. So I'll start with that. And then my question, as you were talking about this safe meet, thank you for sharing that. And it's getting harder and harder to communicate privately. And my question to you is more of a technical one, but I know you guys do a lot of research on this. But as AI becomes embedded with Windows 11, with Mac, with your phones, the new OS, I think that no matter how secure your password, it's going to be scraped before it's even encrypted.
Yeah.
Please talk about that if you can.
Yes, actually, on the SafeMe team, we have the genius that's able to work on the supercomputer types and able to be ahead of times because password could be decoded. But SafeMe, our encryption technology actually is the same technology trusted by German Department of Defense, French Department of Interior, UK National Health Services, NASA, and NATO. So it's a proven encryption technology. And that's why password is actually relatively easy to crack. And so I save my financial records, my health records on SafeMe. So if I see a doctor, like a optometrist or dentist, I have my x-rays and I have my records able to give to the optometrist or the dentist right away, at my fingertips, because I have a Janice private rooms, and then I put all those records. And I will encourage all the audience to really safeguard your financial records and your health records. AI it's almost like an atomic technology. You can use it in a good way or you can use it in a destructive way. But there is one tool that for those who want to have using AI in the right ways on the internet, is called Ganjingwao, GANJING World. Ganjingwao is a clean internet. Use AI to remove all the drugs and addictions, violence, and so it's a clean internet environment. And they have like kindness is cool campaign for kids, and they have programs for children for all different ages. And so there's ways that can use AI in the positive ways. And Brett, thank you for your subscription to Epoch Times and your endorsements. And on behalf of the staff, I really want to thank you and thank all our subscribers, because you are the reasons that keep us going.
Thank you, Brett, for that question. Could you repeat, Janice, that email address?
Ganjingwao is GANJING World, Ganjingwao, and so it's a platform that you can do streaming, and it has lots of great education tools. In particular, those whether you're homeschooling or for teachers, for educators, and lots of resources, and all the programs there have been sanitized, without violence, without drugs and addictions, and so really check it out, and it's a good source of information.
Thank you very much. Our next question comes from a magazine creator, Rosemary from Florida. Go ahead, Rosemary.
First of all, I want to thank you for sharing all of the information in your background with us tonight. It was very, very enlightening. And I admire you for all of the courage that you have had during the past. I have used many of your articles and quoted from many of the articles from Epoch Times in our magazine each month, because your information is so vital. So I do thank you for that too. And I would like to ask you first if you would kindly write an article for our magazine, which I can include, and something about your background, which was so interesting. And, you know, it brought to light some of the things that we hear about, but we've never had the opportunity to have firsthand information. So I would really appreciate if you would write for, a page or two that I could include in our next issue of the magazine. It's magazine, by the way. And also I'd like to ask you how you were able to free yourself from the Chinese clutches and become so, independent and in America and so forth. Would you kindly share that with us?
I was very lucky when I came to the United States because of Tiananmen Square massacre. My best friend was a medical school student, and he worked on an ambulance. And Dr. Pan personally carried hundreds of injured students and dead bodies, and while he worked on the ambulance. And that was the trigger point in June 1989, and started apply colleges to the US. I would give a shout out to my host family in US, Randy and Rhonda Goss, and also Phil Demings, and they have been really helpful when I knew nobody. They took me home for my first Thanksgiving when everyone else have a home to go to, whether spring breaks or Christmas. I could not return to Asia, and they really took me home. And so I appreciate the American values, and I really enjoy, and I feel like the best way to give back is to help the rest people everyone in close society around the corner, around the world. And I think it's only when we spread the good values, then everybody could benefit from it. And then I think that's the common ground. And I would say the values of truthfulness, compassion, forbearance, those are values that I abide by every day, and that keep me going in good days and bad days.
Thank you, Rosemary, for that question. Our next question comes from Minnesota. Amber, go ahead.
Hello, thank you, Janice, for coming on tonight. My question is looking ahead, what gives you the most hope and what concerns you most about America's fight against communist influence and institutional corruption?
My best hope is Secretary Marco Rubio, with a Cuban descendant histories. He understands communism, I would say, better than most people. And he has been fighting communism, not only for Cuba. Let me give you an example. When he was then senator, he initiated a Senate resolutions about forced organ harvesting to trying to help stop the medical malpractice in China, where people are being killed on demand for their organs. And now this Senate bill has been recently reintroduced. It's Senate Bill 4009. So all the audience, whether it's Ohio, Minnesota, and Hawaii, all states in Americas, you can go to your two senators and ask them to co-sponsor Senate Bill 4009. It's a bipartisan bill initiated by Senator Ted Cruz and Senator Merkley. And this bill will censor people who are directly involved in killing people on demand. So it's treating human beings like a body parts. And it also ask the State Departments to provide annual reports on organ harvesting in China, and which Secretary Rubio was more than happy to execute that once it's passed the Senate. And this the bill, House Bill 1540, has been unanimously passed in the House, since waiting for the Senate bill, and then we are confident that President Trump will sign into law when the opportunity arises. So what am I most concerned is the disinformation and misinformations that Americans are receiving every day from other media outlets, the agendas and the money. I mean, there have been honey traps, there have been investments, and there has been lots of money behind a lot of actions, and the Americans against America's tactics, using lawfare, using legacy media like the New York Times. Let me give you examples. The New York Times reporters, Nicole Hong, wrote 11 pieces, hit pieces against Shen Performing Arts, which I mentioned. Those are it's such a beautiful performance that people enjoy and love. Why would they attack Shen Yun's? Well, Nicole Hong's father, George Hong, actually works for the spy organizations called the United Front Work Department of the Chinese Communist Party. And so Nicole Hong never disclosed that. And even for subjects being interviewed in the articles, you know, Coco from Taiwan, Coco married a Chinese man and went to China, and she's working with the Beijing Academy of the Arts, which is a direct competitor with Shen Yun's, but none of those information were disclosed. And so people are being brainwashed, unfortunately. They thought, you know, they're following reputable media outlets, but they did not know that there was the background. The publisher of the New York Times visited Jiang Zemin and then got a lot of direct benefits. And then since then, New York Times has not been speaking up on, you know, human rights abuses, and have been spread the propaganda that the Chinese Communist Party want to use New York Times. I give you an example. Nicole Hong's article became the most widely read New York Times article in 2024 election year about Shen Yun, a hit piece. It's not possible in the election years. You know, there will be other articles. What happened was there were bots that used to promote the article. So eventually X took away 17,000 bots that was promoting those articles. Those bots were say in accounts that have like only 1 to 2 followers and have one purpose and do nothing else but to promote that articles. So people may not know there are other things that we read from some of the media outlets. There is an agenda behind. And so I encourage people to subscribe to the Epoch Times so that you're getting the real news, the facts.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, Amber, for that question. The next question, I believe, comes from Tennessee. Wendy, you could unmute.
That's South Carolina, but thanks.
South Carolina, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir, that's okay. I get it.
I saw Teresa in the background.
That's she's in South Carolina with me right now, though. So
Okay.
anyway, so first of all, I just want to. I too have subscribed to both of us have actually subscribed to the Epoch Times for several years now, and did so because we recognized a long time ago it was one of the few journalistic things that was actually speaking truth. Mm-hmm. But I wondered what your take was in all of this with China sort of kind of getting involved, and Russia and Iran, and then the maybe the threat over Taiwan. And do you think that, and especially with them, like I know they had some military exercises, they actually were helping, they were going into Canada. So do you think this is going to be like I don't know, maybe the start of like a pretty major war with a lot of different countries involved in this?
I would say the war already started. It's just in an invisible way. And as we all know that the Chinese military supplies Iran. I mean, the missiles, the ammunitions, and even the satellite images about the U.S. bases. And so China was involved. And even after President Trump speak up, when Xi Jinping promised that he did not or he will not, but it's an empty promise. I mean, one thing we need to realize, you cannot trust what the Communist Party leaders say. You almost have to take it the opposites. And about Taiwan, Taiwan is a small island. Why is the Chinese Communist Party keep putting pressures and all the military exercises? And because China under the communist rule has been spreading the propaganda that democracy is only for Westerners, not for Chinese. But the existence of a small island of Taiwan with democracy is a direct contrast. And China's Taiwan joining the World Health Organization. Why would you not want people, be connected with health organizations? Because just the pure existence of Taiwan. And it's not about trying to get another piece of land. It's not about the territories, but it's the ideology, it's the democracy. As a matter of fact, in Taiwan is so heavily infiltrated. So U.S. is willing to sell the military equipment to Taiwan, but because the infiltration in Taiwan, and so they have not yet been able to pass their parliament, so their Congress equivalents yet to approve the budgets to buy the military equipment from U.S. I would say what we need to really look at is like Iran, North Korea, Communist China, Russia. Those is kind of a axle of countries that we have to be really concerned. And for them, it's about the survival of the dictatorships. They are in totally contrast to American democracy and to religious freedoms that our country is founded by. But we do have the hope that we're created by the creators, and everyone should have the choice. In China, they should have the choice to choose Christianity or choose Falun Gong or choose any faith they want, but they should have that choice. That's a God-given choice, and that should not be taken away by Communist China or by North Korea dictators, or not by Russians, so or the current Iranian regimes, where they are suppressing people. So the war is ongoing. What we have to speak up and to support actions that will eliminate communism once for all. And that's where true peace, and that's where true religious freedoms, and that's where humanity will flourish again.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much. Man, I salute you guys. You guys are awesome, and your bravery and your courage and everything. We really, truly amazing. Thank God for you.
Thank you, Wendy.
Okay, thank you for that question. You mentioned rights there for a moment. Retained rights is what we call them in the United States, but that pertains to the world, because our retained rights come from our creator of many names across many religions, and those don't come from government. So I'm going to let Rob come back for a repeat question or another question. Go ahead, Rob from Ohio. Unmute.
Hi, Janice. Back in the late 80s, I had the pleasure of going over to Hong Kong to do some business. And when I was there, I was working with people that were just so driven. It was back then, it was still the British colony. But my question is, if China ever really did become communist free, completely let loose off the rails to work is I've seen them work before, the drive through it, the competition. Would the US be able to compete with China then?
I believe when you have a equal playing field, that's where real competitions, and I think that's where talents will be able to be deployed in the best possible way. And today, China is using deceptive practices. So they dump like steel to destroy the steel industries, the rest of the world. They use the same tactics in order to conquer the markets. And for example, in India, I mean, they flood the India with the low-cost products when India can produce low-cost product, but it's about market share and so on and so forth. They will do it at the loss, but in order to gain market share. So I believe when communist China disappeared for 5,000 years, there were no communisms, except less than 8 decades. So when we return to a new communist states, which, the more people withdraw from the Communist Party and its affiliated organizations, we will get to a non-communistic state. And if our presidents will speak up, more openly against communism in China, I mean, that's the largest communist states, I do believe the change will accelerate. And because the Chinese people, the average citizens in China, do not believe in communism. It just, they don't have a choice. They were forced with that, and they want American values. They want the opportunity to choose the faith, and they want to be connected with divinity. For 5,000 years, China was known as the land of divine, and there was a respect and there was a belief in higher beings and to be virtuous. And it's very different than Communist parties, propaganda, the violence, and the destructions. And so I believe Chinese and US will compete under the rule of law when there's no communism, and everything will be better. I believe the productivity will improve, and I think there will be true collaborations and between Chinese and US, and I think we'll be able to become more prosperous on both China and US.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob, for that question. For the audience, we'll be going into our intel round pretty soon, but we do have a couple more questions. We're going to have Brett come back for a follow-up question. Go ahead. Unmute. You're muted. Brett, you're muted. There you go.
I wanted to talk about the communist threat. So as I was growing up, we were taught that the Soviet Union was our enemy and that they knew that we were the enemy. But as I talk to people from the former Soviet Union, former Soviet bloc countries, no, they don't even think about us really. And the common person in Russia, they don't really feel like Americans are the enemy. I wonder what the general feeling is across the average person in China. Do they feel like Americans are the enemy, or has the propaganda gone that far?
Well, the Chinese Communist Party always trying to ignite anti-American sentiments. So when 9/11 happened, the Chinese Communist Party made this own mouthpiece, the media, like the China Daily and all that, People's Daily, and they were painting a totally distorted pictures about what happened to 9/11, and they use that to paint a very bad pictures. And even with COVID, I mean, COVID spread from the Wuhan labs. I mean, Epoch Times produced the origins of the COVID from Wuhan labs from the early 2020s. And when China knew that there was the pandemic, they locked down, but they let Chinese to fly outside China. And that's how it gets spread. So you have to look at Chinese Communist parties is only worried about its own survival, and their own survival is also based on destroy everyone else. They don't treasure life. Under communist rule, there have been 75 million people die of unnatural deaths, less than 8 decades. And that was statistics that even Undersecretary of Department of Defense shared in one of the half alumni events, which I'm an alumni and I was part of that event. And this Undersecretary shows the number of deaths under the different dictators, like Hitler, 6 million Jews, and then Mao Zedong, and the number. So back to your questions. I would say most Chinese want American freedoms. They respect America. They see that as the beacon of hopes. They actually want Americans to speak up for them, to urge, Xi Jinping to stop the persecution on Falun Gong, want to have more churches, not just underground churches, and they want their freedoms. Some are polluted, inevitably because of the propaganda machines. And so any Chinese who get to travel outside China, they have a chance to see. And then anybody who read Epoch Times or our sister media, the NDD TV, we use 4 satellites and broadcasting to China. So that reach a lot of people. And another sister media, Sound of Hope, using shortwave radio broadcasting into China. So they have ways to hear the American voice, and any one of the audience here could also tell your friends and family. And we do believe that fundamentally, people in China do not really believe in communism. In fact, that's why they withdrew from the Chinese Communist Party. 480 million people already did that because they see that as a sinking Titanic, and they want to withdraw from it and not sink with it.
Thank you. Thank you, Brett, for that question. We're going back to the merger of South Carolina and Tennessee. A question from Teresa.
Yeah, Teresa. So I'm the Christian Pillar leader from Tennessee, Janice, and I praise God for your boldness. He's made me a bold person too, but you are really even beyond the boldness I share. But I wanted to ask you, as you know, we've heard about the young men coming from China, and it's been reported and followed, that they were staying in these hotels and all. And I wanted to know, we see the young Muslims speaking out death to America in New York City and all over the United States. Do you think that maybe these young Chinese men are part of the evil corruption, and maybe they're just being more silent and they're all just waiting until they get the word to, jump on us?
There are many sleeping cells that have been embedded in our country, whether it's through the opening of the southern borders in past couple of years, or some through Canada, and some through many ways. China has the China police, illegally having the Chinese police on American soils, and that's how they control the Chinese diaspora. And I am very concerned about those military age, well-trained. They have the same outfits, and they came through in huge numbers, and it's a risk. And so the only way to tackle it is to end communism sooner, once and for all. Otherwise, sleepy cells, whether it's the Chinese or the Iranians or any of those with a certain ideology that's so different from America's. That's how they've been trained, and it's very dangerous. Just think of they can use drones to spread poisons into reservoirs over farmlands. They can attack the transformers, then our electric grids will be taken down. They could be attacking oil and gas production places. And I mean, it's very risky. I mean, the list of risks will go on. And I think this administration has the best opportunity to end communism once and for all, and to truly bring freedoms to everyone in closed society, whether it's in the US or abroad, because we are living in an interconnected world. I mean, the nuclear threats, a nuclear bomb will get the nuclear radiations, the impact, and they can put poisons in the oceans near us, like whether it's in South Carolina, you have the coast, and or Hawaii, you have the coast, right? It's very risky. So I would encourage audience always to take precautions, make sure you have, enough supply of waters and food for emergency, be prepared for another manufacturers pandemics. Maybe a 2.0 could be even more lethal and there could be biolabs, whether they build that in different places, could be in Cuba, could be in any places, because they are using, earlier mentioned about AI, they use AI and use, some of the prior COVID one and plus AI and make it more lethal and could be spread through mouth, or could be spread for anything. For multiple means can spread it. But I think for those who have a religious belief, we have the faith, and so we won't live in panic way. We want to be informed, subscribe to Epoch Times, and we'll help you get the latest and timely informations. But fundamentally, we should take actions to end the root cause. The root cause is communism, is Antichrist. Communism should be eliminated once and for all. And we should not be silent. There are too many bad things happening in this world because too many bystanders. And if everybody on this podcast, on this town hall, and if you spread to others, then that is like joining hands, like 1 + 1 is greater than 2. And so we can just like lighting a candle in a dark room, there's hope, and there will be brightness. And I do believe evil will be eliminated and goodness will survive, will just champion the good values. And so I want to wish everybody have a blessed life, and for those who are being persecuted, and while they follow the values of truth, compassion, forbearance, and they will be free. And for anyone in closed societies, they have the courage and have the hopes, and knowing that help is on the way, and then they are not forgotten, and we use our resources to help end this. And for anyone can take actions like, calling your senators, to co-sponsor Senate Bill 4009. That's co-sponsored by Senator Ted Cruz and Senator Merkley. You can save lives by doing just that. If each subscriber introduce 2 to 3 more subscribers as a referrals, Epoch Times overnight will become number 2 in the nation. And that could have a bigger impact. So I applaud all of you here, because we are joined by a common values that we treasure, values that founded this nation, and we respect the divinity, and we want other people to have the same. And we also warn others of the risks. I mean, all of you have raised great questions, very thoughtful, and you are concerned about the country. Yes, you're not only concerned about yourself, so you worry about the country. So I think it's a good sign. We just need to join hands and eliminate evil once and for all.
Amen. Amen, Janice. I just want to tell you that, you know, you've been one of my favorite speakers through Red America First, and I am going to share this all over the place. And I pray to God that he blesses you and protects you and your family and loved ones.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you, panel, for all your great questions. Thank you, Janice Trey. What a great interview. What a great message from you. You're a shining light and an example for people to get off their butts, so to speak, and be out there and stand in their courage and authority as we move into the golden age. I just have one final question for you, is that how did you enjoy your experience here on Town Hall tonight overall?
It was wonderful. I mean, I felt loved. I felt respected, and I felt encouraged. And I am really pleased to be surrounded by true patriots who really want the American values shine everywhere. And all of you are not only concerned about yourselves. I see the greater love, and I call it compassion. And we all want the best for our countries, for our children's, for the generations to come. And it's a very encouraging. So thank you for having me.
Would you come back on the show again?
Absolutely, anytime.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. It was great again to speak with you and to meet you for the first time. We're going to move into our state-to-state intel round with our panel members. You're welcome to stay on and listen to that. But again, we thank you for your presence. We thank you for your words and your wisdom as well. So God bless you and have a great evening.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it. Let's get ready for the state-to-state intel round. What a great information from Janice Trey. So we're going to we'll start it off with Rob from Ohio. You want to bring us up to date on what's going on in the Buckeye State?
Well, same thing that's been going on for the last couple of weeks. There are promises to, reduce our property tax in light of that we're trying to get rid of it altogether. Every week they come out, it's like, well, we can reduce it by this much more, maybe eliminate this group of people. They are trying everything to get this derailed, so of getting rid of all of our property tax. And I'm sure they're going to find other taxes to put on us, but it will be the first one in the nation, and it's getting closer, so it's going to be probably the main item over the next 11 months. But then, besides that, very little has went on.
Well, you always wanted to be number one, right?
Yeah. Somebody's got to be.
Great. I want to move to Minnesota because we haven't seen Amber in a while. So I don't know. I thought maybe Tim Waltz got a hold of her and locked her up or something. So Amber, what's going on in Minnesota?
There's a lot going on. I guess federal agents just executed out 22 warrants actually on Tuesday, actually on my birthday, the 28th. And let's see, to different autism centers, daycare centers, Medicare funded services, all in the Twin Cities, mainly targeting sites linked to Somali-run businesses. No arrests announced yet. Trump administration defers another $91 million in Medicaid funding to Minnesota due to fraud vulnerabilities, on top of another $243 million withheld earlier. Walt's administration claims state flag issues first, feds and Republican pushback. because all the states in Minnesota want the original flag back. They don't want that other flag. So individual towns now are going around and voting to fly the original flag. So, which I think is awesome. So that's what I fly. So I won't be anything else. What was there? Philip Parrish just put a new article out that everybody should probably go look at. It's called the Benghazi Code, the second email remdesivir and Minnesota's nursing home slaughter, the prosecutable racketeering case against the DFL syndicate. I guess Tim Walton Ellison had a secret email and stuff when it came to the I don't know if I'm saying this right, remdesivir drug. Is that correct? I think that's how you say it for the COVID stuff.
Remdesivir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry if I said it wrong. Don't mean to mispronounce it.
You're good.
So yes. So I guess they had, let's see, what are the updates points here? The evidence that they literally have against him right now for that. For the prosecutors are the earnest DOJ referral letter on the Benghazi concealment protocol, identical methodology used in Minnesota, public records, media documentation of Walt's undisclosed second email, and zero production of COVID FOIAs. So I think it was like a secret link where all the stuff that should have been going on a FOIA like fell through and like went somewhere else or hid or something. Contemporary reports, like 81% of Minnesota deaths in long-term care, highest in US, doubled down on infected discharges. CARES Act payout structure that rewarded remdesivir and Vestator use, whatever that is, missing text, second accounts, keyword scrubbing patterns, and concealment across state and federal levels. I guess. So it seems like they deliberately and knowingly knew about the COVID stuff, sent sick COVID patients into nursing homes and just let it go. So to me, that's murder, pretty much is what I see as that. But yeah, that's about all the stuff that's going on. There's a lot of stuff going on here.
You explained a lot of crimes against humanity, and that's what's taking place throughout the country and the
100%.
world. So no surprise.
Yep, 100%.
One thing I just want to comment there is when we're dealing with our states, it's always the major cities where all the fraud and corruption occurs, including manipulating elections. So when you think of the Agenda 2130 program of smart cities, what do you think they're trying to do? Is corral everybody into the big cities so they can control the elections and your lives even more. So that's what's going on, and that's what we got to stop. Thank you, Janice Trey, for mentioning those things. Thank you, Amber, for Minnesota, and we hope your evil governor, Tampon Tim, will be gone soon.
Cross fingers. Let's hope they're all just gone.
Yeah. I'm going to go to Brett, and I'm going to apologize first because I'm drawing a blank on what state you're in. Outside of the state of confusion, what state are you in?
Yeah, that's the state I live in, state of confusion. So I'm out of Florida, but I'm in Texas this week. I teach a public health emergency management course for the Department of War. So I'm in Texas this week. The things going on in Florida, I don't have my finger on the pulse for the politics so much, but I do understand that there's been some gerrymandering or lines being drawn. Anyway, our governors, if it works out, if it goes through, we'll have 4 more Republican seats. So that's a good thing. And then on the disaster front, there's wildfires going. We've had a drought for some months now. So between us and Georgia, there's been I don't know, nothing like Oahu, but anyway, that's what we're dealing with in Florida. Back to you.
Okay. Well, speaking of fires, we'll go to Hawaii and to Victoria. Victoria, who lives in the state of stolen elections. Victoria, what would you like to bring to the table?
Okay, I'll try to make it quick on updates. Locally, our economy from the Kona lows is lost over $300 million in lost tourism revenue, and damages are roughly over $100 million. A lot of that money, we have no idea where it's going because nobody can track it with all the emergency proclamations that keep going by the governor. Looks like we had a Hawaii State or a Hawaii Senate confirmation, Vladimir Devins, for the new Chief Justice. Our Kilauea volcano recently lowered its alert back to just an advisory for episode 45. Yeah, our volcano is so famous it has its own episodes. It's kind of crazy. A Costco employee was tragically shot and killed earlier this week as an attempt to stop somebody from coming into a store with a gun. People are getting a little cray-cray. Honolulu had a fire at the recycling plant, evidently. In Kapolei, no injuries. Thank you, Jesus. We have a missing family in Oahu, and with all the Kona lows and weather, it's coconut wireless these days. As far as stolen elections, as of about 30 minutes ago, it looks like we are having a elections commission meeting on Wednesday, and I will let you all be privy to this. There is going to be in-person testimony and picketing. I don't know when they've done picketing before, but that's going to be at our Office of Elections in Oahu. So please pray for us. And yes, we are way over the target and things are getting really heated. So God bless you all and aloha.
Isn't there a bill or something on the table that will protect the officer of elections from being fired?
Yeah,
you expound?
There is a bill in the Senate. It's been being worked on since February, basically protecting the chief elections officer, CEO, Scott Nago, from getting fired. So here's the significance to this. I'll break it down quick. If we get Scott Nago out, which the Office of Elections, the Elections Commission has the power to remove our chief elections officer from, like, they just need the people. People show up, people give power, he gets out, we get new chair, right? So today's the last day for applications for our chair, and we are losing 4 elections commissioners to be reappointed at the end of June. However, we have not had elections counted yet, and the Office of Elections, even though confirmed that we're supposed to count over 19,000 ballots on Big Island, will not, John Hendricks or Scott Nago, open up the facility so we can count. So at this point, we are now June 2nd is when people who pull papers, it's closed. So anybody who's running for office, it then becomes closed. So we have a very narrow window that we have to get the chief elections officer out, and we're going to replace the chair. And if we can do this successfully, we can essentially set the projection for Hawaii and fair elections. It's going to be a hot mess, but that's why I'm asking for prayers, because honestly, there's no way to do this except by our God. So God bless you all. And yeah, might be radio silence for a while, but that's because I'm over the target.
Okay. Keep the heat on. If they can't stay in the heat in the kitchen, it's time to leave.
Which is why you had to wait for that email to come out 30 minutes ago. So now it's on. Okay, bringing the fire.
Game on. Becky from Texas. Rob, you have a question for Victoria?
No, that was a thumbs up.
Oh, thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Becky from Texas. Are you with us?
Yes, but I think Ashley wanted Rosemary to go.
Yeah, I was going to say Rosemary had some intel.
Okay, I'm sorry. Rosemary? You have to unmute. You have to unmute Rosemary. We can't hear you.
Maybe while she unmutes.
Okay, well, we're waiting for her. Becky, if you want to go ahead and
Okay.
offer something.
Yeah, I only have a couple of things. So the Texas 10 Commandments school law was upheld by the Federal Appeals Court, the Fifth Circuit. I don't know what that means, but it's the law where they want to post the 10 Commandments in all the public school rooms. And then this morning, I noticed that the Supreme Court ruled 5-4 positively 6 days ago on that. And I tried to read the article to prove that, but I couldn't get through it because of all the pop-ups. It just wouldn't allow me to read it. So I think that did pass by the Supreme Court 6 days ago. And the other thing I had was the FBI field office in Dallas sent out a warning about violent online networks that's targeting minors. They're coercing them and manipulating minor victims into harming themselves, harming animals, and harming other minors. And as far as that goes,
Wow.
locally, we lost 5 or 6 animals, cats and dogs, just this past week that were, brutally killed. And, animal control and the police, had a rapid response on that. So they're not going to put up with that. But, the Dallas FBI did put out that warning. So
Is this just in Texas or is this nationwide?
I'm thinking it's probably going to be nationwide.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jesus, help us.
Yeah. So they're targeting minors, animals, and then having the minors target other minors. So, and then I went to an property appraisal protest workshop this evening, and that was very beneficial. So I have an idea of how I'm going to protest my property taxes. And that's all I got. Thank you very much.
You're going to come back and share, yeah?
Yeah, I got, websites where you can watch the replay of the meeting. It's about an hour and a half long. And then we've got, of course, Texas websites where you can go and get the value of the properties near you to give an idea of what your property should be. So I should be able to fight it. But the only thing is, I've only got like 2 weeks to do it. I wish the workshop was 2 weeks ago, but
yeah.
I went and bought one of those little kids' cameras. That it's like the old Polaroids for those of you that are old enough, where you just take a picture and it spits it out instantly. Yeah. And so I'm gonna, learn how to use that real quick. So I'm on my way to that.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Yeah, speaking of protests, I know some schools are having May Day protests where they're closing down their education systems, and they're going to have students protesting against ICE and immigration. So,
and that's going to make them go to school.
What day is that?
Day.
That tomorrow?
May 1st.
Okay, so tomorrow.
Yeah, May 1st, May Day.
I wonder if they'd reschedule it to Wednesday so we could have them join the Elections Commission protest. That would be nice. You think they'd do that?
Well, May Day is good because May Day means help. We need a lot of help.
Oh, yeah, we do.
It's going to have to force the kids to go to school Tuesday instead of this Friday being their last day. They'll have to go to school next Tuesday to make up for it.
Oh, sure they'll do that.
Yeah, what's the sense in that?
Okay.
Sorry.
Rosemary, are you back?
Our kids.
Rosemary?
I don't. There she is.
Oh,
I don't think she's been able to unmute.
having trouble unmuting.
Looks like it.
Amy?
I'll go next.
I hear you. I hear the merger again from Tennessee and South
Yeah.
Carolina.
Actually, we're actually separated now. She's gone. She might be on her phone now. But I was gonna say,
that wasn't a civil war, was it?
no.
Okay, well, good.
So I see that President Trump is pushing for Tennessee redistricting to add Republican seats, and that the governor vows to redistrict the state, and Senator Blackburn calls on Tennessee to eliminate remaining Democratic seat after SCOTUS ruling. And other than that, I see that Senator Blackburn calls for redistricting Tennessee to remove congressional seat in Memphis. And on a personal note, like the rest of the world, we're having crazy weather. And a couple nights ago, we literally heard hail just slamming our house. And then rain, heavy duty rain. So it's just been some really crazy weather in East Tennessee. Eastern Tennessee. Thank
And
you.
I know we're supposed to make this a short intel round, but I do have work I have to go get done before tomorrow morning. Can I be excused?
Of course you can.
Sure.
You have what we call freedom of choice.
Thank you, Jesus. Aloha, y'all. Have a good night.
Yes.
Bye.
Aloha.
Well, since you mentioned that, as you know, I'm running for mayor, so I have some meetings to attend myself and go. But Ashley had asked me to host the show tonight, and I get out of the meeting at the last minute. That's why it looked like a little chaotic for me to come online.